Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. This is my channel's weekly compendium, ending Monday, July 18th, 2022. Case file number 691, written by Prometheus Titan God. Do you think that's air you're breathing? I don't know if the powers that be consider this a glitch, but it goes with my theory. If we are in a simulation, then its true power over us is that we believe certain things are unbreakable laws of reality. But what if you don't know or think about those laws? Can they be bent or broken? Quick example, not the main glitch, but one of many I have seen. Then I will tell you my most recent one. When I was 19 or 20, I worked at a fast food restaurant, as most kids do, starting out in life. I worked with a wide variety of people, teens, ex-military, a few ex-cons, and elderly people who needed to supplement their retirement. Well, this elderly coworker was working the fryer with boiling oil. I saw him go to wipe sweat off his forehead, and he knocked his glasses into the fryer. It was on at full temperature, and he, without thinking, reached into the boiling oil up to his elbow and took out his glasses. I rushed to him, expecting him to be badly burned. Not even a light burn, nothing. His arm hairs weren't even singed. Sure, he was covered in hot oil, but not even slightly burned. I called him Superman after that. Now to the main glitch, one I experienced recently. At my job, we have these extremely heavy 8-foot by 4-foot bamboo sheets. They weigh around 150 to 250 pounds each, depending on style and thickness. A stack slid off a container truck like a stack of cards onto a coworker's leg. There were at least 6 panels on his leg, close to 1,000 pounds or more, pinning him to the ground. You could hear his bones starting to crackle under the weight as more started to slide onto his leg. God, the sound, it was like when you bend a tree branch and it starts to crack and break. I first tried to lift them off, but obviously I couldn't because it was a ton of weight. Seeing the agony on his face as more weight shifted onto his leg, I went into an autopilot mode. I was aware, but wasn't. I've heard athletes call it a flow state or being in the zone. What I did next still gives me chills. I squatted down and said, once the pressure is off, it's going to hurt like hell. Don't think, just move your leg out. I then lifted the sheets up off him. I lifted them a good 8 to 12 inches. I didn't realize at this point several other coworkers saw me do this. They came over after they heard his scream of pain. They kept their distance. I did it with 2 hands, but he couldn't move his leg. I then lifted it up even more and held it up till he got his leg free. How the hell did I do that? I didn't think about it until they asked me how I lifted close to 1,000 pounds like it was nothing. I said I didn't know because I don't. The guy was bleeding like a stuck pig. Blood was pouring out like a faucet. I then grabbed masking tape and paper towels. At this point, every single person in the company was hounding us on their phones. I said, okay, this is going to hurt. Don't punch me, okay? I stopped his bleeding, making a tourniquet out of paper towels and that blue painter's tape. While in my autopilot mode, police and a dozen people were watching and talking as the ambulance arrived. The police spoke to me. So you lifted that stack there? He asked, pointing to the spot. I said, yeah. Okay, how? I said I didn't know. Well, what the others reported as well. I'm not a huge hulking man, not fat, but do have a moderate amount of muscle. Most people don't notice until I take my shirt off, something I rarely do in front of people. I am fairly muscular, but not enough to lift that. They assume because I'm 51, graying hair, and a little too many wrinkles for my age that I'm weak and feeble. Even with this, I'm not Superman, nor do I have gamma-mutated blood. I guess it's possible I have a dormant X gene. I say in jest. But I shouldn't be able to lift that much weight so easily, even using leverage and adrenaline. I was told the ER doctor asked who wrapped his leg. They said some guy in the warehouse, aka me. He said I saved his leg and maybe even his life. He had the major artery in his leg damaged and would have bled out if I didn't do that. Several things I need to say. I hate the sight of blood. Even just thinking about it now makes me queasy. I was covered with his blood. It didn't even faze me at the time. Sure, we all heard stories of mothers, fathers, and people lifting heavy weights off a loved one, but honestly, I don't even like this guy that much. There's no connection there. He is my coworker, but he was a huge pain in my butt. He thinks he's smarter than everyone, but he's far from anything I call intelligent. What happened to him was totally an example of this. I repeatedly told him not to stand by that unsafe stack of bamboo, and don't touch it. He thinks he's smarter than my 30+ years of warehouse experience. Went up to that stack and pushed it like he was going to straighten out the stack, causing it to fall on him. Yeah, as I said, not too bright. So I know some won't believe this, but multiple witnesses saw it. A police report was filed and a company investigation for insurance reasons was made. The police emergency responders and insurance agents and the company owner all asked how the hell did I lift that much weight. The EMTs kept asking me if I needed medical attention because given my age and the weight I lifted, they were concerned I may have hurt myself and didn't realize it yet. But I was fine, not even a sore muscle. I clearly don't recommend people think they are able to do superhuman stuff just because they believe they can or something. But I think some of us glitch. Some of us are rogues or oddballs. The thing that throws us out of sync with reality. The things that make us aware of or cause glitches can perhaps make certain unbreakable universal laws more flexible at times. Oh, and my coworker took 3 months to recover. He has a huge scar and some nerve damage in his leg, but he's back to work being his normal annoying pain in the butt self. But now when he truly gets me mad, I just say, be careful, because the next time I might count to 20 before I actually save your life again. Case notes for file 691. Do you think that's air you're breathing? So for the first part of the story regarding the hot oil and sticking your arm in it, well, there's an effect where if you have a lot of water that's covering your arm or hand or whatever you're putting in hot oil, immediately as soon as it comes into contact with the hot oil, it's going to flash evaporate. And this is going to create a vapor barrier between the hot oil and your skin. So for a second or two, if you have a lot of water covering your arm or hand, you can stick your hand into hot oil or liquid nitrogen and nothing will happen. It doesn't last very long, but it is a way to do it without getting hurt. And you did mention that your coworker wiped his brow, his forehead, to remove sweat. So it's possible that some of that sweat came into contact with his skin, stuck to his skin, and that created this vapor barrier. The only thing is it's like an exaggeration of physics, where this is a physical effect that can occur, but rubbing sweat onto your arm shouldn't be enough, especially to coat the opposite side of the arm, and it shouldn't really apply to his hand either. So one side would be protected, but the other side wouldn't be. It's like the effect was amplified somehow. And then regarding lifting this weight that shouldn't be physically possible. Well, as you mentioned, there are plenty of stories where people are able to rescue their loved ones or random people sometimes, just by lifting more weight than should be physically possible. Certainly more weight than they can lift in the gym. And how they do this is our minds actually limit our capability to lift weight because generally we don't need to be as strong as our maximum capacity day in, day out. We'd risk getting injured more than anything else. But in rare cases where that kind of strength is required, the brain unlocks the muscle capacity and then we're able to lift more than we ever thought possible. The thing is, again, this is amplified. So people will lift 200, 300, 400 pounds when they could lift 100 pounds. But in your case, maybe you could lift 200. You shouldn't be able to lift 1,000. That should be physiologically impossible even with the unlock from your brain. So, and you said you did it easily and without any injury. That's another thing to consider is that when people lift way more weight than they're supposed to be able to, they often are very injured. I mean, think about all the injuries you get in the gym just lifting ordinary weight that the brain is restricting you from being able to lift more. Your ligaments, your joints, your bones, they're not used to being able to lift that kind of weight. So in all cases where people are in an emergency lifting way more weight than they should be able to, they get injured after. But you didn't even have a sore muscle. So what's going on there? It's truly fascinating. Maybe you do have an X gene. Case file 692, written by Lucid Nightmares. The Lady with the Vacuum. I want to say I was like 8, maybe 9, and I was playing in a small park with my brother. We were climbing a tree, and I, who was stupidly wearing rain boots, fell head first and got my leg caught between 2 branches. It twisted my knee pretty badly. Bad enough where it still affects me a bit to this day. My brother lifted me out and ran home to get my mom. He hadn't brought his phone. When he was gone and I was sitting alone crying in the forest, this is where it gets a bit weird. A lady appeared out of nowhere. She was black and had kinda poofy black hair that was short and kind of hugged her head. She was carrying a vacuum in a purple box. When she saw me crying, she sat next to me and talked me down. She asked what happened and I told her, along with telling her how my brother had to run to get our mom. Well, after about 5 minutes, my mom appears to grab me. The lady was gone. My mom has no recollection of seeing anybody with me, nor does my brother. She is embedded into my memory, and I never met anyone that looked like her before, nor have I since. Who was the lady with the vacuum? Case file number 692, written by a fellow viewer, Dean Martin. The helicopter frozen in time. Here's a collection of 3 small stories from our very own Dean Martin. Story 1. This is a glitch with my brother, where I wrote to my other brother, but I had another incident with him. About 2 months or so ago, I wrote via text to him. We were supposed to play Pokemon together, so I wrote to him in the evening. He didn't reply, so I thought his job was running late. About an hour after the first text, I called him. He didn't take it, so I waited a little and called again. But this time he took it, or should I say, he took it. I said, "Hello?" I heard noise and scratching sounds, and after what seemed like 2 minutes, he screamed and hung up. It was so loud it scared me. I tried calling back, and I called him a total of 16 times and 2 times on Facebook too. And with every call, I was talking to him, and each time he would scream. But finally, I got a hold of the real him and told him. He said it first. "Sorry didn't pick up. My job was running late, and I was talking to my dad," I answered. "There's no way." And then I told him everything. I even sent a picture to him showing him the calls I made, and then he went silent. He said, "I didn't get anything." He then sent me a picture showing nothing on his end of his phone, not a single call registered, but he did get those 2 on Facebook, but couldn't answer, which he told me. But I was talking to someone even on Facebook, so what the hell happened, and why was that person screaming? Story 2. I was out driving with my wife to a thrift store when out of the window I saw a helicopter. It was in the air, flying around, but when I stared at it, it seemed to be in place. Like it was not moving, it was stuck in midair. Then I told my wife, but she didn't see it. She did say, "Cool, where is it?" I told her, but as soon as I did, a tree blocked the path. I said that to her as well, but it didn't matter, because she could see it in 30 seconds, but she didn't. It was in the air, but every time she was about to see, a tree would block her view. We were turning right when the helicopter was about to be in view, which I said to my wife, and I saw it in the air, but then suddenly it vanished. I was looking at the sky and just stared. This whole sequence was maybe 3 seconds long. My wife asked, "Well, where is it?" "Well, it's gone." She sighed, but when I told her what happened, she believed it, because she knows what's happening. Story 3. What happened is really weird on this one. My wife and I were out walking in the woods near us, looking for some plants, when I heard something. At first, it sounded like the wind, and I didn't want to say anything to my wife because it would seem crazy. But as we were walking and stopped, the noise became louder, just little by little. It sounded like people, like many people, all talking over each other. I thought, screw it, and asked my wife, "Did you hear that?" And she said, "Yes, I thought it was only me and didn't want to say anything." I said the same thing to her. We kept hearing those sounds of people talking when no one was around, and it became louder and louder. We looked at each other and looked all over, but no one was near us. The woods were empty. The sun was setting slowly, and we got scared and called it a day and went home. We still talk about it and can't find an explanation for it other than a glitch. We did go back eventually, but nothing strange happened that time. Case notes. File number 692. The helicopter, frozen in time. So this first story actually sounds very familiar. It's like I read a story extremely notable in its similarities. I think though, it wasn't a scream. The person that I read the story from was describing, I think it was their brother as well, or maybe a close friend, and they were calling them. They answered eventually, and when they answered, they were speaking in some foreign, unknown language. It almost sounded alien or demonic or something. In your case, it's just this weird scratching sound, and then your brother screams and doesn't remember doing any of this, and most notably, there's no record of the calls going through on your brother's end. So if you did connect, and there's a mundane explanation, your call went through to some other person that decided to prank you. So was this somehow an elaborate electronic prank? How would they intercept a call this way? Maybe it was an interception from a higher power, or a lower power. And the second story, I've also narrated a story similar to it, where it wasn't a helicopter, it was a plane in the sky that appeared to be frozen in time, like a temporal bubble. You would see it, in this case was at night. I think the person was going out to bring his garbage out to the bin, and then he saw this plane frozen, seemingly stuck in the sky, for no apparent reason. And it was just sitting there for I think over a minute. In your case, the crazy thing happened within the span of 3 seconds. You saw it, frozen still, and then it just vanished. There was no time to land, and wasn't even moving anyways. Makes you wonder, are there temporal bubbles in the sky or in space-time? Not just the sky, it could be anywhere on the planet, where if you enter it, you don't even realize you're in this temporal bubble? Time is essentially frozen for you. Relative to the outside world, there's no time passing for you. You know what? There was a recent case where there was this person that was on a plane, and he lost track of time. It seemed like time just skipped by. He was sleeping, but it didn't seem like he fell asleep, and then many hours passed. What if there are temporal bubbles, where in a moment you're trapped in it, you don't realize it, and it seems like you just zip on by, because after you're outside of the temporal bubble, you are moved along to where you should have been, given you would have traveled through time normally. So it's sort of like a freeze frame of space-time, but then it resets itself. Almost like there's not enough processing power for the server to handle. I guess it could be a way to save on crashing the whole server, where you just freeze a certain segment of it and give more processing power to other locations that need it. The third story just sounds like a sort of collective haunting of a specific location in the forest. It is odd though that when you went back, there was nothing abnormal. So if these entities were still there, if there were echoes or ghosts, maybe they moved on. And I probably wouldn't have gone back myself. That seems a bit terrifying. You're both very brave. Case file number 693, written by Armored Meerkat. The Kissing Entities. The Hat Man. This happened in Budapest, Hungary, in the early 90s. There was no internet, and I never heard of the Hat Man before. I woke up at midnight and was not able to move. Classic sleep paralysis. All of a sudden, I felt something truly evil in the room. It was dark and I was not able to see the corner, but I knew someone or something was standing in the dark corner. In my mind, I saw a tall man with a wide cowboy hat, long leather coat, just like a Western outlaw. I felt the menace coming from him, whatever it was. I would have written it off as a nightmare or sleep paralysis if my cat would not have climbed the curtain and was not hissing and spitting like crazy right at it. Even though this happened over 20 plus years ago, I still get the shivers if I think of it. Kissing Entities. I lived alone at the time and was working a closing shift at a restaurant, arriving home past midnight and just chilling for a while before dozing off. As I was drifting off to sleep, I felt a gentle hand stroking the top of my head and felt a light kiss on my forehead. I was not able to move to turn around to see who or what it was. My heart was filled with the purest love and felt happy, but in a strange, blissful and calm happiness. A year or so later, I had my apartment remodeled and all the furniture was pulled into the middle of the room. My mom had the habit of coming to check on me unannounced. I wanted to have a nap before my shift, so I left the key in the lock. We had the old-fashioned skeleton keys, so the door could not be opened from the outside. As I was drifting off again, I heard a key rattling in the lock. I was thinking, great, Mom is here, but knew she would not be able to get in because the key was inside. Then I hear footsteps. I was wondering how was she able to get inside. Again, I feel the gentle stroke on my head and a kiss. Same blissful euphoria. Never happened again. I miss my kissing entities. Creepy file number 35, written by Chocolate Chip Wizard, The Brown Van. This happened a long time ago, in the early 70s, on the rural outskirts of a small satellite town of Detroit. Back in those days, kids wandered freely, and more or less without knowledge or fear of the dangers every child knows about these days. Stranger danger was not a thing kids at the time were taught in school. I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, a nearsighted, neglected girl child of parents too immersed in their own misery to bother with parenting. So while I knew firsthand how dangerous family could be, I had no fear of strangers. I was walking home from the bus stop. I remember it was a warm, pleasant, sunny day. The road was a dirt one, solely residential, and the houses were all situated below the crown of a hill out of sight from the road. I was about a city block from home when a brown truck pulled up, looking, to my poor vision at least, like a UPS delivery van. Inside the truck, I could see 3 people. One was a girl in her 20s with long, straight blonde hair, who very much resembled my older sister or the girl on Mod Squad, a common look in those days. There was a young man with the kind of dirty, bearded Jesus look that was just common at the time. And the third, I think, was kind of shadowed, hard to make out in the interior of the truck. One of them said, "We have a package for your parents. Get in and show us where your house is." Though I had no fear of strangers at the time, I was a logical little cuss. When I did interact with adults, I usually annoyed them by just saying it like it was, so I answered, "My parents' house is right there," pointing down the road. "You can follow me if you want to." They tried for several minutes to persuade me to get into the delivery truck. I just couldn't understand why these stupid adults wouldn't simply follow me a couple doors down so they could make their delivery. I turned away from the truck and walked along the edge of the road towards my house, thinking they would just follow me and deliver their package. But the van drove off. No delivery attempted. Now looking back, I realize that I don't remember seeing a UPS logo on the truck, though it was a brown delivery style vehicle. Back in those days, surplus bread delivery vans were a dime a dozen. I also realized that there would not have been 3 young people dressed in jeans in a real UPS truck. I'm awfully glad I never found out what they had planned for me that day. Case file number 694, written by Iniquitous Pearl. When everything in the universe is repeating. For the last week and a half, I've been noticing little things happening, but now it's starting to get to me. It started with watching videos or TV. I will be watching, no buffering, and high Wi-Fi points, etc. Then whatever has been said on whatever I'm watching will repeat itself with no issue and then carry on, seamlessly. For example, I was watching a video and the girl on the video said, "I don't know what is going on, but I don't like it." She took a breath and then said the exact same thing again, word for word, exactly as she just did. It was the same scene replayed. When this first happened, I thought nothing of it, but then it started happening on my phone too. I started rewinding videos or restarting movies to see if it was uploaded that way accidentally, but they were all normal. I tried to brush it off, but a couple days ago it started happening while talking to people too. I would be talking to someone and then they would repeat what they said exactly, the same as if they didn't just say it before. At first, I could try to logic my way out of this weird occurrence happening only while watching YouTube or Netflix. But now, I don't know how to logic my way out of people speaking to me face to face and then repeating. When I ask them why they said it again, they are adamant that they didn't. I've asked the people I live with if they have been experiencing this too, but no one has. I start mouthing the end of the sentences when it happens, and they look at me as if I'm batshit crazy. But to me, they literally just said and did the exact same thing only moments ago. It's like I'm glimpsing the future a few seconds ahead, but I have no idea how. Case notes for file 694. When the universe just keeps repeating itself. So this happened to me too, just recently. Maybe not the same context exactly, but it seems very strange in hindsight. So I was trying to sleep at my ridiculous 7 a.m. or so, 6, 7 a.m., 8 a.m. sometimes, And, I was in and out of it a bit. It takes me forever to fall asleep, even if I'm tired, like 30 minutes or so. So I have Netflix on my phone, just in my recliner, trying to doze off. I have Stranger Things on, and I'm, laying down, eyes closed, still processing the sounds, the dialogue of the scenes. And Nancy was saying something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember it was maybe 10 seconds ahead. I was processing, okay, this is what she said, that's the storyline, and then it looped back on itself, and she repeated exactly what you just said. It's weird though, at the time, I didn't think too much of it. I thought, okay, maybe it was a tech glitch or something. And then I'm reading about this story and how in the comments there are so many people that apparently are experiencing this, and not just in media, but even with people in real life, where they're seeing them. They say something, and then they repeat it, and their mannerisms and their body movement and their tone of voice and everything matches exactly. It's repeating the exact same thing. I don't know what's going on. It seems to be recent. I don't think it has anything to do with CERN or, being sucked into a black hole into the warp zone, 40K style. But there is something weird going on. It seems to be a new type of glitch, where maybe the server isn't able to process things quickly enough, so as to loop them back seamlessly. It's weird. Have any of my listeners experienced this, I wonder? Let me know. It's very interesting. And disturbing, too. Bonus file. Written by Bald Gal, Definitely not an echo. This happened a few years ago. I couldn't sleep, so I was sitting at my desk. We had recently moved houses, and my desk was positioned directly next to my window so that I could see the flower field. Our closest neighbors were miles away from us. I decided to open my window. For context, my room was on the second floor, and I never opened this window. It is extremely rare for me to open windows because I have terrible allergies. It was almost midnight, and I decided to open this window next to my desk to let some air in. I should have known something was off because it was extremely quiet. There were no cricket noises or anything. This window had no screen, and when I looked out, it was pitch black dark outside. I couldn't see a thing. My sister and I love The Little Vampire, a cute movie. For anyone who knows the whistling scene, my sister and I would replicate it with each other when we were kids. I decided to whistle. I'm not very good, but I managed to get out one very long, shrill whistle. Everything was still silent outside until I heard a whistle back. I have good relative pitch, what someone knows as perfect pitch. It was my exact same whistle repeated to me. I literally froze, and then it did it again, so I whistled back. However, an ear-splitting whistle and shriek returned. It was as loud as a train passing by. I fell out of my chair, scrambling to close the window. Everything in my soul was telling me to run. My mom ran from downstairs and asked me if I heard it too. It was literally shaking for hours after that. We moved about a year later, but I never opened that window ever again. I would like to hear possible explanations you all have. The only thing I know is I never want to encounter that again, whatever it was. An echo is a sound bouncing on a surface. It is not a sound being repeated from open air or a sound different from the original, coming back as loud as a train. So this couldn't have been an echo. Creepy file number 36, written by Gile189. The connection was intercepted. I gotta get this off my chest. For context, it was probably after 2 a.m. I was on a WhatsApp call with my girlfriend. We were talking normally. Soon, her voice cut off from the call, and I started hearing a child. I assume a little boy. He was talking, more like babbling like babies do. My girlfriend has a younger brother. He is 13 or so. It couldn't have been him. She didn't have any family in her room with her. This was quite odd because it sounded like whatever it was pretty close to the microphone. I said, "Jess, who is that? Jess?" Then as suddenly as it started, it ended and an eerie silence took over the call. "Jess?" I asked again. Jess responded, "What? Are you all alone?" "Yeah, why?" I just told her, "Nothing, just curious." I left it at that. A couple of months passed and the strange interference happened again. I'm sure it happened after 12 a.m. this time. The call with my girlfriend got interrupted, and a really staticky conversation between two ladies came through. It was too staticky. I could just make out a couple of words. I said, "Excuse me," like at least 5 times, and "Hello?" I got no response or reaction. When silence filled the call once more, I called out for my girlfriend and asked her, "Did you hear that?" She said, "No, what did you hear?" I told her what I heard and she just stayed silent. I calmed her down by saying, "Maybe someone tapped into our call or my phone somehow intercepted another call." I'm not sure what it was. Trying to reason it made me more uneasy. Thinking about a thing tapping into our call was creepy. Imagining that it was some creep hacking my cell phone connection actually was worse. Some months later it happened again. This time it was worse. It happens during the early hours of the morning. The call got interrupted and I heard on the other end this chilling high-pitched and fast laughter. It slowed down and lowered the pitch until it was the deepest laugh I've ever heard. It shook me to my core. The laughter stopped and it started crying hysterically, and after a few seconds of wailing, it stopped. I immediately told my girlfriend and she got really scared this time. I told her to forget it and go to bed. I will never forget about these 3 incidents. It still freaks me out. I fear calling my girlfriend because of the interference. If someone can explain this or had similar experiences, please share in the comments. Case file number 695, written by Jackie Von Smokealot. The Unreal Simulation. The other day, my boyfriend and I went to the mall to our favorite dumpling restaurant, and immediately everything just felt strange. Lights seemed brighter and more sterile than they usually do, and everyone around us seemed off, to say the least, almost robotic in their mannerisms. We sat down at the restaurant, and I leaned over to him and told him I wish we could have the spicy dumplings first. Note, there was no server around us, and the restaurant was loud as heck. Our server then walked out of the kitchen and asked us if we would like the spicy dumplings first. They have literally never asked us this. We've been in there dozens of times and it felt almost scripted, as if someone had been listening in. After we left the restaurant, we stopped for dessert and saw a woman in a short baby blue dress with long brown hair walk by us. Maybe a few seconds later, a woman who looked identical and was wearing the exact same dress but in baby pink walked by. We joked about it, feeling like a simulation. Another minute passed and a guy in a gray shirt and black pants walked by with a Nordstrom bag. We joked again that it would be weird if he was a recycled NPC too. Not a minute later, the same guy walked by us again. We just stared at each other in utter disbelief and got the heck out of there. It was honestly one of the most unreal things I've ever felt. We laughed about it and just thought, what are the odds? But the more I think about it, the more unsettled it makes me feel. Case file number 696, written by Sisters Grow, Z. Our minds will blot out the sun. I was sat in the garden in the northwest UK with my mom sunbathing in the high temps yesterday at around 12:30 p.m. in the afternoon. It was quiet, just birds singing. Then all of a sudden the sky went dark as if someone had switched the lights off for a split second, and then it was light again. I thought it was me cracking up, but my mom said, "Did you see that?" And we discussed it. Our first thought was maybe it was a plane or a balloon, but the sky was completely clear and it was completely silent, no engine noises. There was nothing in the sky that would even blip out the sun slightly, let alone completely. Is there a natural explanation for this? Or did anyone else experience this too? All I remember is it went very quiet, cold, and it was almost as if something massive had completely blocked out the sun. But it was so quick I just was shocked and didn't really have time to process what had gone on. My mom describes it as the same, just pitch black and cold and quiet. It almost felt like that split second lasted longer than it should have, if that makes sense, like time had slowed down. I spoke to my dad when he came home from work as he was sitting in the gazebo in the garden at the time. I asked if he'd seen it too, and he did. He said I assumed something big flew over, but didn't question it because there's no noise or anything. So there's 3 of us that saw this now, in different locations. My dad also talked about it more this morning. He doesn't believe in the paranormal really, but he was also spooked by it. He can't explain it rationally either. Case notes for file 696. Our minds will blot out the sun. So this will actually be my fourth, maybe even fifth story regarding the sun just blipping out of existence. But I think it's more than just the sun. In fact, it may not be related to the sun at all. I don't think the sun is suddenly losing output. Well, first of all, the light reaching us from the sun to Earth, it takes light about 8 to 9 minutes to actually reach us. So it's not related to the sun just blipping out. Or if it was, it would be delayed by 9 minutes. But I don't think it's related to the sun itself. I think this could actually be some sort of test by the government, testing out a new weapon to disable people. Right now we have non-lethal weapons, stun guns and flashbangs. But what if you could disable someone's ability to see? It would last for however long as you have this device enabled that they're testing. This is all speculation, but it's not unreasonable. I mean, the government's done tests before on people in different psychological ways, like MK Ultra, where they tried to manipulate people into doing whatever they wanted via humiliation and drugs and subjecting them to all kinds of weird behavior and stimuli. And you also said that you felt cold. So I wonder how that plays into it. Maybe this weapon or device that they're testing, maybe the intent isn't to blind us. I don't know what the test would be, if it is even a test, but it doesn't seem related to some natural force. I think this is some sort of device being used. Maybe the inadvertent effect is to cause a temporary blip in perception of those around it. But you felt cold, so that's some sort of energy drain. Obviously the temperature didn't change, it's your own senses that made you feel like you were cold. So just less energy flowing through your body. It almost is like, for a split second, your whole body was going into stasis. Some sort of stasis device? Bonus file, written by G-Unit 02. A flock of murder and a love hex. This happened around 4 to 5 years ago. I'm from Papua New Guinea, and black magic is still heavily practiced by some here. An area well known for this is a place in Papua New Guinea called Samari Island. A lot of young teenage girls are taught how to practice these things by their grandmothers. Long story short, my auntie needed a babysitter to come and look after my little cousins while she was at work. One of her coworkers recommended a young girl from Samarai to come and help out with the kids for a few months. Babysitters tend to live with the families for a while over there. They almost become a little bit like family. Anyway, said coworker forgot to mention that the girl was from Samarai. Otherwise, my auntie would have looked for someone else. A few months into it, everything is going mostly well. That's until my auntie notices some odd shells in her bag. The kind of shells that you wouldn't want someone that knows what they're doing to be in possession of. My auntie kind of brushes it off. Maybe she's just a fan of collecting shells. She also didn't want to mention this to her. About a week later, my family and I flew over to visit everyone. We live in Australia. We were staying at the family house where my little cousins and this babysitter were. A few nights into things, I'm awake late into the night. I was just scrolling through Instagram on my phone. I noticed the babysitter was sitting outside as well. The house has a weird format, so if you're in the main room or kitchen area, you can see almost all of the outside front section. My auntie walked past me in the main room. She said that she woke up to go get a cup of water. Once she had her cup of water, she went outside to talk to the babysitter. I watched as both of them were having a conversation. I couldn't make out what they were saying because my auntie closed a glass sliding door behind her when she went outside. All I saw was a babysitter pointing upwards into the sky. It was here that I realized that a large group of crows was circling above the front section of the house in the moonlight. My auntie kind of looked at her with a strange look, then went back to her room. I was kind of mesmerized by these crows at this stage. I've never seen such a large group of them circling like this before. In this collection, they're actually called a murder. While I was watching, I noticed the babysitter now had her arms sticking out, almost like she was inviting one of them to swoop down and land on her. At this point, I was kind of chuckling to myself and watching it with curiosity. My jaw literally dropped when I saw one of these crows split from the pack and swoop all the way down to the house. I'm thinking to myself, no way this crow is about to land on her arm. It lands on her arm. She walks down the driveway talking to the crow still sitting on her arm and into the darkness. Now I'm just sitting there wondering what kind of Harry Potter type crap I just witnessed. Shortly after this, I end up going to my room and heading to sleep. The next morning, when I explained what I saw to my auntie, is when I got even weirder. She explained to me what they were talking about last night. Auntie: "Still awake? You have strong eyes, it's almost 4. Babysitter: "I'm waiting for my dad." She pointed up to the circling crows. Then my auntie goes to bed. Her dad was dead. Auntie finds out she's from Samurai. Auntie lets go of the babysitter and finds family relatives to look after the kids now, a bit scared. I should add that aside from this incident, another motive to let her go was because she kept flirting and making moves on my uncle. After this incident, and knowing that she may be capable of spellcasting and other things, they wanted her out of the house before she could try anything else funny. She struck them as someone that would attempt a love hex if she knew how to do it and had the time to properly perform one. Not sure on the full incident afterwards, but that's what I was later told. I didn't see it as too important to the story, but now realize that it adds important context as to what this girl was capable of